Championship weekend. The Link's going to be rocking on Sunday. Let's bring on Eagles insider Dave Spadaro. I'm so glad we get to have you back again in the playoffs because that means we're still going.
Well, thank you for having me as usual. And yeah, it's becoming kind of the norm. It is remarkable when you step back and think that this is the Eagles' eighth NFC Championship game appearance since the 2001 season. So that's 24 seasons. One of every three seasons, the Eagles go to the NFC Championship game. And in the context of like a career, it really is a remarkable amount of success. It's only one Super Bowl victory, and we lament that and we look for more. But to get to this point is extraordinary, and it speaks to the way Jeffrey Lurie has run this organization, the people he's identified as the leaders, the culture that he's created through multiple head coaches, and it just doesn't happen in the NFL.
Before we get to this week, I want to go back to last week. It was a blast down there. It was the atmosphere was unbelievable to be a fan in the stands. Talk about what it was like for you guys and the team to, not only play in that, but see the scene that was there.
Yeah, boy, you process it so quickly. Um, Great energy from the audience. The fans were terrific. It was weird how, late in the first quarter, I remember saying, "Gosh, where's all this snow? These meteorologists botched it again."
I didn't even have
And
my
then,
jacket on at the end of the first quarter. And then the third quarter, it's like frigid in a blizzard.
yeah, and it stuck to the ground really quickly, and it definitely changed the outcome of the game a bit. I mean, the Eagles actually, the Rams actually seemed to handle it better than the Eagles did. Like, it was weird. Like, it was the offense still functioned at a high level. The Eagles' passing game wasn't there, so um, it was great. Great to win. Crazy to see Saquon running down the field, banging himself in the helmet, and you're feeling. Somebody sent me a text. I was on the field at that point. Somebody sent me a text saying, "I'll see you next week," and I was like, "What's the matter with you? You should know better than this. There's still 4 minutes left in the game." And sure enough, the Rams are driving down the field in the last minute, and it's hold on to your hat time. So that's just the way it is. It's never over until the game hits zero. I think actually in the radio booth, Merrill Reese went a little overboard after the Saquon touchdown, and has been joking and nervously joking about that this week. So, but it was a great atmosphere. Everybody got out of there safe. We got out of there with a victory, and it's on to the Commanders on Sunday.
If there's one thing I know about you is you do not like to jinx things.
Oh my gosh.
And so it must have driven you crazy to get that text and to
I
hear
I
Merrill Reese.
scolded the guy like twice as they're driving as the Rams get the ball back. I was like, "You should know better than," like, it's just like childish stuff. But yes, superstition does run deep with Dave Spadaro for sure. That's why I'm
So
wearing the same sweatshirt, the same position that we've done the interviews in previously.
see, I didn't even notice, but you're eating a
Less hunt.
different fruit.
Well, I wasn't eating fruit last time, but I'm really hungry this time.
We could do an hour on Sumitomo oranges, but we'll save that for a later date. You can keep eating them though.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you mentioned as you were doing the math that it's been 21 years. Every 3 years you're in this
24
position.
years, 24 seasons, and the Eagles have reached the NFC Championship game at least 8 times. 8 times
Yeah.
in 24 years.
And you mentioned it's not one coach. This is a series of different coaches. What is it about this organization? I have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but what is it about this organization that has created consistency without having the one thing that is most consistent, which is a head coach?
Yeah, I mean, Jeffrey is just really good at identifying and vetting the right leaders of the football team. And Howie Roseman has been here through that. So there's some consistency and stability there. Um, there are characteristics that Jeffrey looks for that he will absolutely have to have in a head coach, and some that are non-starters for him. It is remarkable that in his time as the owner of the Philadelphia Eagles, every single coach Jeffrey has hired has made the playoffs. And when we think back to last year, Eagles collapse. A lot of speculation 12 months ago. Hey, what are the Eagles going to do here? And the decision was made. Look, they could have ripped it apart. They could have started all over. Instead, he kept Nick, and he replaced the coordinators around him. So I've always referred to it like this: there's the CEO of the business is the head coach. Instead of dismissing the CEO, the Eagles made him better by bringing in experienced coaches. The COO of the team is the quarterback. To make him better, they brought in the likes of Saquon Barkley. And it's just been a really good plan that Jeffrey's always had of succession, identifying the right people, and having a no tolerance. This is the culture of the Philadelphia Eagles. Anything else won't be tolerated. And really, the culture is it to me, it comes naturally because I've been here for so long. But like, you work well together. You do what you have to do for your teammate. You make sure that you understand that the team is bigger than an individual. And when I talk to people like in the corporate world, it's this befuddling formula. And to me, it's just like that's the way everybody should work in the world. If everybody worked that way in the world, our world would be in such a better place. But that's not the way it is out there. So within a team structure, we believe in working together as a team and being selfless for the team.
We're in this coaching carousel now, and you see that there are certain teams that don't have success that keep going out and hiring assistants, people who don't have head coaching experience. But if you look at the success of the Eagles, most of those coaches didn't have head coaching experience. Andy Reid didn't have it. Sirianni didn't have it. Doug Peterson didn't
Doug
have it.
Peterson didn't have it. Yeah.
How is it?
Chip was
Chip
the
Kelly
only one who
obviously
had
did.
it at the college level.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is it about Jeff? What does Jeffrey Lurie look for successfully in an assistant that isn't able to be replicated throughout the league?
Yeah, I mean, so when you do a job interview, Jeff, for a head coaching job, you bring with you your binder, your plan, your manifesto, if you will, your vision, who you're going to hire as coaches, what they think of the organization, the personnel on your team, what the practice is going to be like, what kind of schemes they're going to run, how they're going to coach, the
Long
personality.
snapper.
Yeah, right. Do they have the ability to stand up and lead a room of men and command the room? And so Jeffrey's been just spot on with all of those. And the great part of it is it's kind of like being a personnel evaluator, because you're always, whether you draft a player or sign a player in free agency or trade for somebody, you're always projecting how that player will do in your system. Who would have ever thought Zach Bond would be a finalist for the Defensive Player of the Year? Outside linebacker at it with the Saints. Eagles sign him and project him into Vic Fangio's defense. And with a lot of hard work, great coaching, great work from Zach, here he is as a star player. It's amazing. So Jeffrey's got just a really keen eye for that kind of young coaching talent that can grow into the position.
Well, and it's an organizational thing. I mean, if you look at this roster with Brandon Graham out, I believe only two guys, the long snapper and Jake Elliott, are on the roster from the 2017 Super Bowl. So
Lane Johnson also.
Lane Johnson too. So three. So they've turned over the whole roster and brought in all this talent that now will be out there on the field while they still are one of the youngest teams in the league, particularly on defense. So, they're on schedule for what we want to see, but they're also ahead of schedule for their age as a team and talent.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they're coming into the year, they're like the 8th youngest team in the NFL, average age 26 and something. And that's Darius Big Play Slay over 30, BG over 30, and I'm not sure there was another starter over the age of 30. It's pretty incredible. Yeah, I mean, and also think about this, Jason. Like last year at this time, we were all waiting to see what would happen with Jason Kelce, Fletcher Cox. Two icons. Oh my gosh, how could the Eagles ever live without the two of them? And not only have they lived without those two, Cam Jurgens make the Pro Bowl, Jalen Carter makes the Pro Bowl as an All-Pro. So you have room for growth for these young players to step up and fill the void of leadership, of production. And so far, it's worked out really, really well for the Eagles. And it really started with Andy Reid. The idea that you drafted Donovan McNabb and then build your offensive and defensive lines, and that has carried through to today. Build from within, and then take it out. And the Kansas City Chiefs are doing it, the Eagles are doing it, and I'm sure we'll see more teams kind of focusing on that. But I would argue that like that's why the Giants are so bad. They used to be a team that really won in the trenches, and now they're bad offensively on the offensive line. And you can't have a quarterback unless you have a good offensive line. So
That's an understatement.
yeah, sorry about that, Jeff. But yeah, so like yeah, I mean that it's a
He knows it.
yeah. I'm sure you remind him of it all the time.
We often joke that 5 garbage cans could do a better job than the
We
Giants
won't make
offensive
you
line.
own that comment, but that is what Jeff has said. But it is an interesting transition because you talk about when the Giants dominated. This is the first time since 1986 that a championship game between two NFC East teams is going to happen. And so let's talk about this Commanders team coming in, who's also ahead of schedule for their rebuild, and they're coming in
way ahead of schedule
as a really hot team. Talk about the Commanders team, which is different than the team that we played 2 other times this year.
I mean, you've heard the expression, the most important position in sports, any sport, is the quarterback position. This is the poster example of that, how Jaden Daniels has come in and turned a franchise around. Now, look, Josh Harris, culture changer, new ownership, I get it. But having that quarterback means everything to the Commanders, and he's the real deal. And he's a great football player as a rookie. So it all starts with him. The offense is dynamic, electric, unpredictable, very difficult to defend against because of his ability to beat you with his arm, with his feet, with his legs, with his brain. They've all rallied around him. Players gravitate toward that greatness. And so Jaden has been a revelation as a rookie. And then defensively, they're a bunch of kind of parts that have come together with the new head coach, and they play extremely hard. They're very, very aggressive. And Dan Quinn's did a nice job with a player like Frankie Louvu, who I just talked with Lane Johnson about. And I said, "What's up?" He had just done a press conference, and he talked about the various pieces of the Washington defense, and he didn't mention Frankie's name. And I said, "Well, the one guy you didn't mention is Louvu." He goes, "Yeah, he's like their Swiss Army knife. They use him in all these different positions and all these different ways. And the guy makes a ton of plays, and that's good coaching." So they're just a very well coached team. They are bold. They go for it. I mean, when you're playing against their offense, you have to be prepared to be out there for 4 downs. They are going to go for it on 4th and anything reasonable from a midfield on. So if it's 4th and 4 from the 47 of the Philadelphia Eagles, my money's on the Washington Commanders going for it on 4th down because they have that X factor in Daniels, who's so hard to stop as a runner. Excellent skill receivers in McLaurin and Brown. Zach Ertz has had a resurrection of his career. In the backfield, Brian Robinson Jr. is a hard-charging running back. Austin Eckler is a multifaceted, outstanding back who's great in the receiving game. Their offensive line is not great, and to me, that's where the Eagles have the big advantage in this game. But they've done a good enough job to get to this point, to win on the road in Tampa, and then go to Detroit and go toe-to-toe with Detroit and score points and take the football away. Kudos to the Washington Commanders.
The Commanders have rallied around Daniels, but the Eagles have bought in to Fangio. What is Fangio's game plan to stop Daniels and this offense?
I think to blow it up from the middle out. And the loss of Sam Cosmi, their interior offensive lineman, is a big loss for Washington. And Jalen Carter and Milton Williams and Jordan Davis have a large advantage there. So if you can blow up the middle, you really take away some of that run threat from Jaden. And then you've got to pinch on the corners, and you've got to do a lot of great things against him. So I think that's part of it. Give them a bunch of different looks, and certainly just play disciplined football and make tackles. The Eagles, oddly, in that last game, they played in December, 5 takeaways, but then they gave up 22 points in the fourth quarter, lost the game. So I get it. The challenge is big. I really trust Vic Fangio. I think the Eagles are very solid on defense. I'm glad it's not going to snow. I think the defense is helped by that. And I also think there's an intangible here that nobody talks about, and that is when the Eagles lost to Washington, the way the Commanders celebrated as if they had won the Super Bowl, I think that rankled the Eagles. I think there's still a lot, like, we can't wait to get back at them. CJ Gardner Johnson gets thrown out, being baited by Washington players. Jalen Carter gets a big personal foul, baited by Washington players. I think the Eagles just don't like the Washington Commanders. And I think that'll be a big factor. And I'm actually glad that the Eagles lost that game, because coming back to beat a team for a third time is very difficult to do. Coming back to beat them after you've lost to them, get a little chip on your shoulder. And I think that's a big thing for the Eagles.
So one of the things I'd be concerned about as an Eagle fan going into this game is something you just mentioned. There was already a Commanders game, Eagles up, Commanders start to come back. This past weekend, looks like the game's in hand. People start texting you. I'm not going to say it's their fault, but then the Rams come back.
He's not going to say
What
it's your fault. He's a mush himself, so he knows about
but what do the Eagles need to do to make sure that doesn't happen again? If they get up, to step
Yeah.
on their throats and not let them up.
Yeah, because look, it happened against Atlanta in week 2. The Falcons scored a touchdown, won the game. Nakobe Dean intercepts a pass against the Jaguars, saving saving that game. Washington, of course, to come back. The Rams come back. Yeah, you got to play 4 quarters, and I don't I don't know how Vic feels about it necessarily, but is he happy with the way he called the end of the game last week, where the Rams drove 10 plays and 70 yards in 1 minute and 40 seconds to score a touchdown, and then are driving down the field again, and they're at the 13-yard line with plenty of time left to win the game? Got to put teams away. And so we have seen Reed Blankenship with a few fourth quarter interceptions that have helped do that. In Washington, Reed had the big interception and should have put the game away. Eagles have a 3rd and 6 or whatever it was, and Kenny Pickett puts the ball right in the hands of Devontae Smith. He drops it. Then the defense gives up the touchdown drive. So, yeah, look, if the NFC champion, if a trip to Super Bowl 59 is on the line and the Eagles have a 5-point lead and Washington has the ball, hey, here's the message to everybody. Don't send me a text. I'm going to be pissed if I get a text.
Jeff's not allowed to send me
Yeah.
texts like that anymore. We went through that in the baseball season. We already have a rule that he has to.
It ain't over. It ain't over till it's over.
No, it is not. And I'm not going to make Jeff ask the Saquon Barkley question, but I'm definitely going to ask it. Over their past six games, the Commanders have the bottom 6 run defense. The Eagles are averaging 227 rushing yards per game in the playoffs. I think Saquon is where it's at. Jalen comes in off the knee injury. He's obviously not going to talk about it, but when you come up with a game plan here, talk about the role of Saquon against this defense, which gave up a lot of points against Detroit and really hasn't been the best against a run.
I mean, they gave up 500 plus yards against Detroit as a total defense, right? So there are holes, there are big plays to be had. I still, you have to have the threat of a passing game. You got to be successful. The Eagles are too good with their skill position people to not have a good passing game. The idea of giving up on the passing game, Jalen's fine, okay? Jalen's fine. So I don't want people to be like, oh, the knee, it's a couple years ago, it's the ribs. It's like, no, he's fine. Everybody's banged up right now. And if he's not fine, then he shouldn't be playing. So throw the ball. But absolutely, Saquon Barkley is going to be a huge part of this game. In that in the second game, first half, first quarter, 7 carries, 109, 2 touchdowns. Rest of the game, he had 22 carries, 41 yards. Obviously, Jalen and the threat of his running out of the game. So Washington sold out on the run, and they did a great job bottling up Saquon Barkley. And I'm sure that they're going to take some of those things that they learned and apply them on Sunday. So it's the Eagles' responsibility to adjust. And certainly Saquon Barkley needs to get to football. I love the idea when I think back to the season. Well, are the Eagles going to spot Saquon? Is he going to be the workhorse of the offense? Are they going to just give him cap him at 17 carries a game? Well, you turn around, he's got 26 carries every game for 200 yards. Like, why would you ever think of taking that out of your lineup? The guy's amazing. He's amazing. Never seen, nobody's ever seen anything like this, where it's just edge of your seat, dances outside, boom, down the field, smacking himself in the helmet. Like it's like video game stuff. It's awesome. So yeah, he'll have a big piece of it. But I also think the Eagles need to make sure that Washington is honest and respects the passing game and respects Jalen running the football.
It should be more than that. The Eagles have the talent on the outside to take
Yeah,
advantage of what Washington has right now is our young, inexperienced secondary. Very good. I mean, Mikey Sanderstel had played great last week,
yep.
but
Did he go to
they're
Michigan?
young.
He went to
He is a
Michigan.
Michigan guy.
How did I know?
There we go.
Guys
Yeah.
gets a shout
But
out.
they're young and inexperienced, and you have Devontae Smith and AJ Brown who have tons of experience in the playoffs, and they should be taking advantage of it. And Jalen's got to make those passes downfield.
I agree. I agree. That's why I'm not just excusing the passing game. When you see one-on-one coverage on the outside in the NFL, that should be an indication to throw the football. And I believe that the Commanders will try to sell out and stop Saquon. So throw the football, make big plays, back off the defense. Think about a couple big plays in the passing game, what that will do for the Eagles' run game. And I also do wonder. Look, I mean, at some point, Washington is going to wake up and go, "Wow, we're in the NFC Championship game, aren't they?" It's their fourth straight road game. They are going to realize that, hey, geez, wow, we're in. It's a different kind of game than a playoff game, than a regular season game. It's a chance to go to the Super Bowl. So let's see how Washington handles the pressure. You talk about the 17 team and the turnover from that team. The 22 team, there's a lot of players who played in the NFC Championship game and who played in Super Bowl 57 who are still here. So the Eagles understand the moment. What we are experiencing, though, is Jaden Daniels is a freak who's a superhero who has played above and beyond the moment.
And I mean, the Commanders have played above their season average in the playoffs. I mean, their turnover margin, they were +1 in the regular season. They're +6 in the postseason. So, you'll see if that comes back down. I did want to ask you before we let you go about special teams a little bit. The influence in the postseason, be it the first game with the fumble on the opening kickoff that really set the tone against Green Bay. Jake Elliott giving me anxiety every time he steps out there. And look, I was there last week, and you don't see it on TV, but you see this in between plays when they go to breaks. He's going out there and just practicing his swing. So like
He's trying to figure out the wind. So he's going
yeah,
out there to gauge the wind. Yeah.
yeah. So talk about that. I mean, he's missed at least one kick in each of the last 3 games, but he's hit the big field goals he's had to make. So like, talk about Jake and the
Well,
special teams going into this game.
it's enormous. I mean, can't miss extra points, right? And Jake is 22 of 22 in his career to this point, so I'm not jinxing anything in field goals in the postseason. But missing the extra points last week put the Eagles in a very precarious situation, and that just can't happen. And he's missing it every time the same way. If you ever golf and you hit the ball, you hook it. That's what he's doing. So you got to correct it. So we'll see what kind of correction he makes. It's not a distance thing with him. It is a miss. It's a missed contact with him. So we'll see how he does. But certainly special teams are huge. And I wonder if Britton Covey will play. His practice window's been open. Cooper DeJean's done a nice job in the punt return game, but he's not as good as Britton Covey in the punt return game. And if he can break one, if he can flip the field, you really change the whole dynamic of a game. So special teams are every bit as important. And we saw in the second Washington game how their kickoff return game consistently put the Commanders in great field position. After that game, the Eagles changed kickoff men, going from Braden Mann back to Jake Elliott. So kickoff in what we should see decent weather is huge on Sunday. Everything matters in this game. Every penalty, every kick. People were complaining about the Kansas City Chiefs and the Houston Texans. I'm like, that's ridiculous. Like, they missed a field goal and an extra point, didn't they? They committed penalties. They dropped passes. They couldn't protect the quarterback. Like, that's what matters. And through all those Andy Reid years, when from 2001, 2002, 2003, the ripping your heart out losses in the NFC Championship games, the Eagles didn't play well in those games. Finally, in 2004, they cut down on the turnovers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The Eagles are a +6 in turnover ratio. In these 2024 playoffs, across the league, teams that have won the playoff or the turnover margin are 7-0. Of all the things we talk about, and we pretend we know everything, does it maybe just come down to that? Win the turnover battle and win the game? It's not quite as simple as that, but I think there's a lot to be said for the power of winning the turnover margin.
Yeah, when's the last time the Chiefs had a turnover in the playoffs?
Right.
Lord
the
knows.
Chiefs do not beat themselves. That's why they win.
Yeah. So I would never be so bold to ask you for a prediction. So I'm going to ask it this. I'm going to ask it this way: are you more confident going into this game than you were into last week's game?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always confident in the games. I'm glad I'm glad it worked out this way. Again, everybody, when we left Landover, Maryland, everybody was very excited for the opportunity to play against the Washington Commanders again. Here we are. If you had told me at the beginning of the season, hey, the Eagles are going to play in the NFC Championship game at home against Washington, where do I sign up? I have tons of respect for the Commanders, all their coaching staff, Jaden Daniels, etc. Very good team. But I love the Eagles in this situation, and I cannot wait for Sunday to get here. I feel very good that the Eagles will play a great game. And I believe that if the Eagles play a great game and Washington plays a great game, then the Eagles will win the game.
And it sounds like you're saying that the Eagles want this opportunity to play the Commanders.
Absolutely.
I hadn't thought as much about that. Kind of the
Commanders beat them last time. Beat them last time.
But it seems like it's more than that. It seems like what they did and how they beat them and what they did afterwards that kind of is not lost on this team.
Let's just say I expect a very physical game. Emotions must be kept in check, but the Eagles will be a very, very focused team.
Well, my hope is that after this week, we still have one more chance to talk to you. So, Dave Spadaro, we always appreciate giving us time and breaking it down. Have a good time out there, and we look forward to hearing from you.
Guys, thank you so much. Go Birds, and I'm going to get back to my orange here and plow through this thing.
You're going to have to make sure you have a lot more for the Super Bowl if they win.
Oh, we have a bunch of them here at the NovaCare Complex. Thank you. Enjoy. Thanks so much for having me, guys.